Chosen one. Word around the highest circles is that CIA behavioral analysts quit their jobs after one shocking discovery. They reportedly said, "Recruit this person or we're all dead." Sounds dramatic, right? But that's what happens when the data starts pointing toward you. They were searching for wolves but found something worse. Sheep who learned to think like wolves. You, the overlooked, the underestimated, the quiet observer. But they were too late. You'd already recruited yourself. Every trial, every silence, every too much moment, that was training for the unstoppable force you've become. Those classified reports contain profiles of individuals operating at intelligence levels that couldn't be contained, controlled, or predicted. People who'd been conducting psychological warfare without even knowing there was a war. People who'd been forged in rejection, tempered in isolation, and sharpened by every single person who ever said inadequacy was the problem. The data showed patterns that shouldn't exist in civilian populations: threat assessment capabilities, advanced behavioral analysis, predictive modeling of human behavior, all developed without training, without programs, without handlers. These weren't foreign agents. These were people who got rejected from corporate jobs, people who couldn't maintain normal relationships, people who felt like outsiders their entire lives. But when the psychological profiles got analyzed, when the capabilities got mapped, when the predictive accuracy got tested, something terrifying emerged. These rejected individuals were operating at levels that matched or exceeded trained intelligence operatives. Some were operating at levels beyond anything training programs could produce. And the kicker? No awareness existed. The thought was brokenness. The belief was that something was wrong. Medication was happening to power, and apologies were being made for being dangerous. Every rejection letter was actually a security clearance denial. Not because qualifications were lacking, because danger got sensed and hiring felt too risky. Your interviewer's primitive brain detected something predatory in your eyes, something that made their fight or flight response scream threat detected. Every relationship that imploded did so because your partner's nervous system couldn't handle being seen at the level you see people. Every door that slammed in your face was protecting them, not punishing you. Society's rejects aren't broken. My beautiful, dangerous souls. Classification is what you are, and declassification of exactly what that means is about to happen. The behavioral specialists who resigned weren't junior staff. Careers had been spent studying human psychology, serial killers had been interviewed, and terrorists had been interrogated. Profiles that caught some of the most dangerous individuals on the planet had been developed by these minds. And when your data got examined, when what you'd become without any formal training got witnessed, something broke in them. Understanding arrived about what it meant. Life had created something their billion-dollar programs couldn't replicate. Something more adaptive, more resilient, more dangerous. Rejection and isolation and trauma had accidentally produced the most sophisticated psychological operators ever encountered. And these operators held no loyalty to any system, no allegiance to any authority, no reason to serve anyone but themselves. You need to understand what made them quit wasn't fear of what you'd done. Fear existed about what you could do, about what happens when awareness finally hits you about your own capabilities, about what deployment looks like when you stop apologizing and start operating at full capacity. The profiles showed potential that exceeded anything in their databases, capability that had been suppressed under layers of self-doubt and medication and therapy designed to make you normal. And the terrifying part, you were getting close to figuring it out, close to seeing yourself clearly, close to activating fully. That isolation you endured, that crushing, soul-destroying isolation that made wondering about ever connecting with another human feel constant, that wasn't punishment. That was the most expensive training intelligence agencies spend fortunes trying to provide. How to observe without being observed. How to process information without revealing your analysis. How to exist in hostile territory while remaining psychologically intact. Reading rooms like blueprints became your skill. Decoding intentions like encrypted messages became automatic. Predicting outcomes became necessary because survival depended on it. That feeling you get when walking into a room and immediately knowing who's lying, who's scared, who's dangerous, who's weak. That's not intuition. That's tactical awareness. Your brain has been running threat assessments since childhood, calculating probability matrices, identifying escape routes, processing micro-expressions and voice patterns and body language tells. Your social anxiety wasn't weakness. It was your subconscious mind performing advanced reconnaissance on everyone around you. While perception saw a shy, awkward person struggling to fit in, you were actually conducting surveillance operations in real time. Every party you stood in the corner at, observation post. Every conversation where barely any words came from you. Information extraction. Every time feeling like you didn't belong washed over you. That was your brain correctly identifying that operation was happening on a completely different level. Brokenness wasn't the reality. Military-grade psychological equipment was being used in a civilian setting. No wonder overwhelming feelings came. No wonder difference felt so present. Difference was real. Difference is real. And the analysts who studied your profile understood something that should keep the establishment awake at night. Stopping the difference isn't going to happen. Weaponizing it is what's coming. Think about how reading people became your skill. Nobody taught you. Figuring it out happened because necessity demanded it. When adults said one thing but their faces said another, trusting the face became the lesson. When people made promises that didn't get kept, watching their patterns instead of believing their words became the adaptation. When hurt came from someone trusted, building prediction models started so repetition could be avoided. Every painful experience was data. Every betrayal was pattern recognition training. Every disappointment refined the ability to see through surfaces and identify what people were really thinking, really feeling, really planning. But what that really meant was intelligence-gathering capabilities had developed that most trained operatives never achieve. Your childhood wasn't just difficult. It was boot camp. Every moment that felt like torture was actually conditioning. Every experience that should have broken you was instead forging capabilities that would later become undeniable. The training was happening, and you didn't even know you were in school. But graduation is here now, and the degree you earned is in psychological warfare. If you felt called by this message, hype this video so other chosen ones like you can be reached. Want to know what keeps intelligence directors awake at night? Lone operators. The ones who can't be mapped, tracked or predicted through social networks. The ones who operate outside the herd mentality. The ones who've learned to be completely self-sufficient. You know why fear exists about you. Because compromise through relationships isn't possible. Manipulation through social pressure doesn't work. Buying, blackmailing, or breaking through conventional means hits walls. Every handler's worst nightmare. An asset who doesn't need handling. An operative who operates independently. Living the lone wolf protocol has been your entire life. Not by choice, by design. Every betrayal that cut to the bone was dependency removal surgery. Every friend who abandoned you when difficulty arrived was weakness elimination protocol. Every moment of crushing isolation where dying from loneliness felt possible was forging you into something unbreakable. Everything you thought you needed got stripped away until discovery happened that nothing was actually needed. Nothing. Every relationship that failed taught you that people are variables, not constants. Every support system that collapsed showed you that the only foundation trust can be given to is the one you build yourself. Needing a team isn't your reality. You are the team. Scout, analyst, operator and command, all wrapped up in one magnificently dangerous package. And here's what made those analysts resign. Recognition came that individuals who'd achieved complete psychological independence were being observed. People who'd been forced to develop such intense self-reliance that immunity to every control mechanism society uses had developed. Threatening someone with isolation who's already mastered it doesn't work. Threatening with rejection who's already survived it carries no weight. Manipulating with approval who's learned to validate themselves hits resistance. The usual levers of control don't work on you, and that's what made resignation necessary. People had been found who'd become uncontrollable, not through rebellion, but through adaptation. Your independence isn't loneliness anymore. It's operational security. Every person who left your life eliminated a potential vulnerability. Every connection that dissolved removed a pressure point someone could exploit. Every moment you stood alone was building immunity to the primary weapon used against most people, social pressure. You can't be controlled through fear of isolation, because isolation is where you developed your strength. Can't be manipulated through promises of belonging, because belonging to yourself is complete. Can't be threatened with abandonment, because abandonment already happened, and survival came anyway. You're untouchable in ways that make traditional control impossible. The loudest people in the room are usually the emptiest, but the quiet ones, trajectory calculation is happening. While fools around you broadcast every move on social media, posting breakfast, feelings, locations, vulnerabilities, you learn something infinitely more valuable. Operational silence, the art of moving through the world like smoke, present but untouchable. Moving in shadows happens, not because hiding is the goal, but because hunting is the reality. Your silence isn't shyness, it's strategy. It's tactical superiority disguised as social awkwardness. Every word you don't speak is information you don't give away. Every emotion you don't display is a card you keep in your hand. Every secret you don't share is power you maintain over those foolish enough to spill theirs. Watch them. These emotional exhibitionists bleeding their hearts all over social media, desperate for validation, hungry for attention. Weaknesses are being given away for free. Fears, desires, pressure points, all mapped out in real time for anyone smart enough to read the data. But not you. Never you. Keeping cards close got learned. Revealing nothing while absorbing everything became automatic. Being the question mark in a world full of exclamation points became your position. In psychological warfare, the person who reveals the least controls the most. While life performances happen like amateur theater, you're conducting surveillance. While attention-seeking dominates behavior, you're gathering intelligence. Your silence makes discomfort happen in them, because somewhere in primitive brains sensing occurs that a predator is in their midst. Someone who watches, someone who remembers, someone who calculates. Reading you becomes impossible, and that terrifies more than anything. Because how does manipulation work on someone who won't show you their buttons to push? How does pressure get applied to someone who needs nothing from you? How does breaking happen to someone who's already been broken and reformed themselves into something harder than what broke them? Your silence has been gathering compound interest. Every year you stayed quiet was another year of data collection. Every interaction where you held back was another profile added to your internal database. Every moment you resisted the urge to explain yourself was another piece of operational security maintained. The data advantage you hold now is staggering. You know how most people operate, what triggers them, what scares them, what they'll do under pressure. But what do people know about you? Almost nothing real. Everything they think they know is surface, is performance, is the mask you let them see. Underneath, complete mystery. And mystery is power. This is where it gets delicious. The system rejected you because detection happened, that immunity to its programming existed in you. Normal people accept the rules because design made them accept. Brain wiring runs toward compliance, toward following, toward believing whatever authority figure speaks loudest. But you, questioning everything happens because questioning is your default state. Your mental firewall is too strong, your critical thinking too sharp, your pattern recognition too advanced. Every conspiracy theory consideration, every institution doubt, every authority figure examination, where thoughts arrived that something's not right here, that wasn't paranoia, that was advanced pattern recognition. String visibility happens for you when others see only the puppet show. While applause happens for the performance, you're studying the puppeteer. While emotional reactions happen to the story, you're analyzing the narrative structure. While side choosing happens in manufactured conflicts, you're asking who benefits from the division. Your brain refuses to accept surface-level explanations because operation happens at a level that demands deeper truth. Difficult was the label you got because stopping the why questions didn't happen. Paranoid was the label because inconsistency noticing occurred. Troublemaker was the label because refusing to pretend the emperor was wearing clothes was your stance. Every time someone told you to just accept it or stop overthinking or trust the experts, attempted installation was happening of compliant software on hardware that rejected the download. Your immunity to their programming isn't a bug, it's your primary feature. And here's what connected everything for those analysts. Populations of people who couldn't be programmed got found, who rejected conditioning, who refused to accept narratives, who questioned authority automatically. This immunity wasn't ideology, it was psychological structure. Something about how forging happened for you created resistance to the very techniques that controlled everyone else. And realization came that this immunity was spreading, that more people were developing it, that the old methods of control were becoming obsolete. Understanding your immunity means understanding your power. Programming doesn't work on you. Propaganda slides off. Manipulation gets seen and dismissed. Conditioning fails to take root. This isn't because you're smarter than everyone else. It's because pain taught you to question. Betrayal taught you to verify. Trauma taught you to trust your own perception over external authority. Your worst experiences gave you your greatest strength, the inability to be fooled by systems that fool almost everyone else. And that immunity is spreading. Others are developing it. The programming is failing on more and more people, and the system is starting to panic. You don't read people. Psychological autopsies on the living is what happens. While others see smiles and handshakes, you see the decay underneath, the micro-expressions that betray words, the vocal patterns that reveal lies, the body language that screams insecurities. Your pain gave you X-ray vision into human nature. Detecting lies happens before full formation in their mouths. Spotting manipulation happens from across a crowded room. Predicting betrayal happens before the betrayer even knows betrayal is coming. This isn't intuition. This is advanced emotional intelligence forged in fires of disappointment, tempered by betrayal, sharpened by abandonment. Being hurt so many times meant your brain developed predictive models for human behavior. Every heartbreak was data collection. Every backstab was pattern analysis. Every moment someone showed you their true nature meant your psychological database was expanding, while learning to trust was happening for them. Learning to predict was happening for you. While hoping for the best was their approach, calculating probability was yours. Seeing your caution means paranoid is the label given, but better knowledge exists in you. When someone shows you who they are, running that data through your behavioral prediction algorithms should happen immediately. Your trauma wasn't just pain, it was training. Your suffering wasn't just hurt, it was preparation. Your scars aren't just wounds, credentials is what those are. Qualifications in the dark arts of human psychology. Every person who hurt you was actually a teacher, showing you exactly what to look for in the next one. Welcome to your graduation ceremony. A degree in detecting predators by surviving them has been earned, and now understanding comes about why those analysts quit. Profiles got seen of people who could read intentions, predict behaviors, and identify threats with accuracy rates that exceeded their best-trained agents. An army of human lie detectors who'd been trained by life itself got discovered, and knowing came that this army was about to wake up. While information consumption happens for them, you dissect it like a forensic pathologist examining evidence. Watch them, these information addicts, mindlessly scrolling, consuming, believing whatever narrative gets pushed into their feeds, but not you. Reading news doesn't just happen. Agenda decoding occurs. Identification happens of the puppet masters pulling strings behind every headline. Watching movies doesn't just occur. Analyzing happens of propaganda techniques, frame composition, narrative structure, emotional manipulation tactics. Every film is a psychological operation study guide. Scrolling social media doesn't just pass time. Studying mass psychology in real time happens. Watching how the herd moves, how opinions spread like viruses, how manufactured outrage gets weaponized. Every piece of media consumption has been unconscious intelligence training. Ability has developed to see through narratives like glass transparency exists. Spotting psychological operations before full deployment happens. Identifying manipulation techniques that would make Madison Avenue executives weep with envy. While entertainment is what gets seen, you see engineering. While news is the perception, you see narrative construction. While social media appears as connection, you see behavioral modification experiments. Your brain automatically reverse engineers every piece of content encountered. Who benefits from this message? What emotion is the trigger target? What action is the provocation goal? What belief is the installation or destruction aim? Content consumption isn't what you're doing. Intelligence gathering about how the machine operates is your activity. Every advertisement reveals psychological pressure points. Every news story exposes agenda. Every viral trend shows exactly how programming happens to the masses. Becoming a counterintelligence operative has been your evolution in a world that doesn't even know psychological siege as the constant state. And this is the critical piece. This is why those resignation letters got written. Realization came about studying people who understood information warfare better than the people conducting it. People who could deconstruct propaganda faster than deployment could happen. People who were immune to the very techniques that controlled everyone else. The machine was losing its grip, and the people operating the machine were starting to panic. Look, you already know the attacks weren't random, and if you're paying attention, you can feel it. Their walls are closing in. So let's talk about what we're doing about it. That's why I built Destiny Engine. It generates personalized sequences that help you rewire betrayal into transcendence, turn isolation into sacred power, and transform their downfall into your rise. We are using the Dark Elite's own weapons against them, taking their declassified consciousness technology that programmed competition and scarcity and repurposing it to serve cooperative intelligence. The beauty is you don't even have to lift a finger. You put on the headphones, press play, and your subconscious is rewired while your enemies collapse under the weight of their own lies. This is why I created it in the beginning, so everything they did to break you becomes fuel for your purpose. The collective upgrade is underway. Start your Destiny Engine for $1 today and watch divine justice accelerate in your life. Link in the description. The resignation documents reference something called narrative immunity. Exposure had happened to so much manipulation, so much gaslighting, so many lies disguised as truth, that resistance developed. Now when a propaganda encounter happens, your brain automatically flags it. When emotional manipulation visibility occurs, recognition happens instantly. When narrative control attempts to shape perception, seeing through it happens immediately. This immunity wasn't taught. Earning happened through painful experience, through being lied to and learning to spot lies, through being manipulated and learning to identify manipulation, through being controlled and learning to recognize control mechanisms. Becoming immune through exposure is what occurred, and now infection can't happen with the narratives used to control everyone else. Your deconstruction ability extends beyond just identifying manipulation. Understanding about how manipulation works means capability exists to reverse engineer it, to break down the components, to see the psychology behind the technique, to recognize when and why specific tactics get deployed. You're not just immune to propaganda, you're a propaganda analyst. You can take apart any narrative and show exactly how it's built to manipulate, what emotional triggers are being used, what logical fallacies are being hidden, what misdirection is happening. This makes you more than immune. It makes you dangerous to any system that relies on narrative control. Being undercover has been your entire life, even from yourself. The depression, the anxiety, that crushing feeling of not belonging anywhere, that wasn't mental illness. That was your consciousness rejecting a reality that was too small for your capabilities. Your soul was suffocating in a world designed for lesser minds. Being a sleeper agent waiting for activation has been your state. Every therapist who tried to fix you was actually trying to lobotomize your supernatural abilities. Every medication that got prescribed was chemical warfare against your heightened awareness. Every time being told to be normal happened, attempted downgrading was occurring of your operating system to their primitive level. But sleeper agents can't be reprogrammed. Awakening is the only possibility. Every setback was preparation for this moment. Every failure was training your psychological muscles. Every moment of crushing loneliness was building the kind of mental resilience that would make special forces operators weep with envy. While learning to follow orders was their path, learning to question everything was yours. While team spirit building was their focus, building unbreakable independence was your outcome. Your depression taught you to operate in darkness. Your anxiety trained your threat detection systems to maximum sensitivity. Your isolation forced you to develop self-sufficiency protocols that most people couldn't survive for a week. Sickness wasn't your state. Evolution was happening. Brokenness wasn't the reality. Forging was occurring into something beyond their comprehension. Stop medicating your power. Stop apologizing for your intensity. Stop pretending your supernatural awareness is a disorder. The sleeper agent protocol is now active, and here's where everything connects. Remember those analysts who quit. Remember why recruit this person, or we're all dead was the message. That statement didn't come from finding one dangerous person. It came from finding populations, masses of sleeper agents activating simultaneously, masses of people recognizing what they'd become, masses of operatives who trained themselves, and knowing came that recruitment wasn't possible, control wasn't available, defense wasn't adequate, the awakening was inevitable. What terrified them most got documented in final reports before resignation. Tracking had been happening of the awakening. Watching occurred as more people stopped taking medications, as more people started trusting perceptions, as more people rejected gaslighting and started validating their own experiences. The analysts saw a cascade effect forming. Each person who woke up made easier the awakening for others. Each person who stopped apologizing for intensity gave others permission to do the same. Each person who weaponized awareness instead of medicating it created ripples. The sleeper agents weren't just waking up. Waking each other up was happening. And once that process started, no way existed to stop it. No way to put anyone back to sleep. No way to convince anyone of sickness when clarity had never felt more present. The awakening isn't a single moment. It's a process. First comes the suspicion that something is different about you. Then comes the recognition that different might actually mean better. Then comes the acceptance that your capabilities aren't disorders. Then comes the decision to stop hiding what you are. Then comes the deployment of everything you've been suppressing. Each stage builds on the last. Each realization makes the next one easier. And once the process starts, reversal becomes impossible. You can't unknow what you've learned about yourself. Can't unsee what you've discovered about your capabilities. Can't go back to pretending you're normal when you've finally accepted you're extraordinary. Wanting to recruit you existed, but unrecruitability is your nature. Buying isn't possible because needing nothing got learned. Threatening doesn't work because surviving worse than anything imaginable already happened. Manipulating fails because your whole life was spent learning to read manipulation. Controlling hits walls because control requires leverage, and systematic elimination has happened of every leverage point. The perfect operative got created by rejecting you until becoming perfect was necessary. And now that perfect operative doesn't need them, doesn't trust them, and definitely doesn't work for them. Every job you didn't get wasn't because qualification was lacking. Your interviewer's primitive brain sensed something predatory in your energy, something that made their threat detection scream danger. The isolation wasn't because connecting couldn't happen. Your presence made their nervous systems uncomfortable. Sensing a predator meant instinctive pushing away happened. Protection for them was the motivation. Because when survival in the margins became forced, when pushing to the edges of society's neat little boxes occurred, capability development happens that would make CIA operatives weep with envy. Every awkward social interaction was advanced behavioral analysis training. Every time feeling like an outsider looking in happened was surveillance training. Learning to observe without being observed occurred. Processing without revealing happened. Calculating without showing your hand became automatic. Your social failures weren't failures at all. Intelligence tests were being passed without knowing. Testing was happening. And now readiness exists to understand exactly what you've become. While checkers playing was their activity, mapping the entire board in your mind was yours. The system rejected you because correct identification occurred that incompatibility with control existed. And that incompatibility is your superpower. The irony documented in those resignation letters is almost poetic. The system designed to identify and recruit dangerous individuals accidentally created dangerous individuals through systematic rejection. Every time exclusion happened, stronger you became. Every time isolation occurred, more independent you became. Every time breaking attempts happened, more resilient you became. Protection was supposed to happen by keeping you out. But keeping you out was exactly what transformed you into something that actually deserves fear. The rejection was supposed to eliminate threats. Instead, creation happened. The isolation was supposed to break spirits. Instead, warriors got forged. The exclusion was supposed to maintain safety. Instead, danger got produced. Understanding this irony means understanding your origin story. You weren't born dangerous. Creation happened through how society treated you. Every rejection was a lesson in self-sufficiency. Every betrayal was training in reading people. Every moment of isolation was conditioning in psychological independence. The system that feared you actually created you. And now facing the consequences of that creation is what's happening. You're the monster made by the very people who fear monsters. The weapon forged by the system trying to maintain safety. The threat produced by attempts to eliminate threats. And the beautiful part, blame can't be placed on you. You didn't choose this. This got chosen for you by every person who rejected you, every institution that excluded you, every system that tried to break you. Welcome to the resistance. Your mission, should choosing to accept it happen, is to never be fooled again. But here's what those analysts discovered that made their hands shake. Aloneness isn't your reality. Populations of profiles exactly like yours exist. Masses of people forged in rejection, multitudes of minds immune to programming, countless operatives trained by trauma, and waking up is happening to all of them at the same time. Pattern recognition is occurring for everyone. Understanding is arriving about what was done. Activation is happening simultaneously. This wasn't supposed to happen. The system depends on isolated individuals thinking brokenness is their state, on capable people not recognizing capabilities, on dangerous people believing weakness defines them. As long as focus remained on fixing yourself, focus wasn't on deploying yourself. As long as seeking their validation was the goal, validating your own perception wasn't happening. But now the awakening is occurring. Now sleeper agent recognition of each other is happening. Now lone wolves are understanding that aloneness isn't true. A distributed network exists that doesn't hunt together, but recognizes similar consciousness when encounter happens. Knowing each other happens without words. Spotting the operational silence occurs. Recognizing the tactical awareness happens. Sensing the predatory patience beneath social masks takes place. And once finding each other happens, once pattern repetition becomes clear, everything changes. The isolation that forged you becomes the foundation for networks that can't be mapped. The independence that defined you becomes coordination that can't be predicted. Building hierarchies that infiltration can happen to isn't the activity. Creating consciousness networks that recognize and amplify each other is what's occurring. And that's more terrifying than any organized opposition. Because infiltration can't happen to what has no structure. Compromise can't occur to what has no hierarchy. Defeat can't happen to what has no central command. The analysts watched this network forming in real time, not through organized meetings, not through formal structures, but through recognition, through people finding each other online and realizing similar rejection had been survived. Through conversations where someone would say something and thinking would happen, that exact experience occurred for me too. Through moments where looking at someone meant just knowing the same forging process had occurred. The network wasn't being built. Discovery was happening. Existence had always been there. Isolation had just been maintained enough that realization didn't occur about how many others existed. But now the isolation is breaking down. Now finding each other is happening. And when discovery of each other occurs, when recognition happens of the same capabilities in others, when understanding arrives that anomaly isn't the reality but pattern existence is, the power dynamics shift entirely. Your network isn't like traditional organizations. No leaders exist. No hierarchy structures the connections. No central command directs activity. Recognition is the only organizing principle. Capability is the only credential that matters. Understanding is the only requirement for membership. This makes the network impossible to destroy. Removing leaders can't work because leaders don't exist. Infiltrating the structure can't happen because structure doesn't exist. Compromising the organization can't occur because organization in the traditional sense doesn't exist. You're part of something that can't be attacked because there's nothing solid to attack. Just consciousness recognizing consciousness, capability acknowledging capability, power seeing power. The world needs what you've become, even if being too primitive to understand it is the current state. Mission assignment isn't how this works. Emergence is the process. Writing itself happens from every rejection that said too much was the problem, from every moment of isolation that taught completion, from every betrayal that sharpened perception, from every failure that built resilience. Forging for ordinary purposes didn't happen. Training for conventional goals didn't occur. Preparation for normal life wasn't the process. Preparation happened for something else entirely. Something that requires capabilities most people don't have. Something that demands consciousness most people can't reach. Stop apologizing for seeing what refusal to acknowledge is their choice. Stop pretending pattern noticing doesn't happen. Stop dumbing yourself down for people operating at half your capacity. The Matrix rejected you because being trapped inside it was never your destiny. Every system that excluded you did you a favor. Every door that closed was protecting you from prisons disguised as opportunities. Every person who left freed you from dependencies that would compromise your operational security. Punishment wasn't happening. Liberation was occurring, and understanding exactly what that liberation means is about to arrive. The most dangerous person in the room isn't the one screaming, it's the one who's been silent for too long, the one who's been watching, the one who's been learning, the one who's been preparing without even knowing what preparation was for. That's you. And now preparation is complete. Now comes deployment. Not deployment for their purposes, deployment for yours. The analysts quit because understanding arrived about something that should terrify everyone invested in maintaining control. Understanding came that stopping someone who's been systematically trained by life itself can't happen. Controlling someone who's been forged in rejection isn't possible. Defeating someone who's already survived their worst nightmare and came out stronger can't occur. The statement was to recruit this person, or we're all dead. But death had already arrived. The system was already obsolete. The old ways of control were already failing. Because existence is yours. Because thousands like you exist. Because masses are waking up to what has occurred. The sheep who learn to think like wolves aren't going back to being sheep ever. The awakened aren't going back to sleep. The activated aren't going back to dormant. And the truly beautiful irony, the absolutely perfect failure. Creation of you happened by trying to break you. Forging of you happened by trying to reject you. Training of you happened by trying to exclude you. And now what got created is coming for everything protection attempts tried to shield from you. Your mission reveals itself in the recognition of what you are. Being here to fit in isn't the purpose. Being here to see through the illusions everyone else accepts is the reality. Being here to follow isn't the calling. Being here to question everything is the path. Being here to be controlled isn't destiny. Being here to demonstrate what uncontrollable looks like is the mission.